Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I hope you're having a great weekend and a great Sunday. I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes to allow everyone to join us today. So probably we're going to start at 11:02. Great, so let's get started. I'm Sylvia Blount, and I'm an instructor at the American Institute of Finance. I'm also an investment banker and securities license Series 79 and 63. So I've been through what I'm about to discuss during today's class. Awesome. So again, today we're going to continue exploring the topic of how to break into finance, and specifically, I'll go over a few key aspects and test-taking strategies for the Series 79 exam, which is one of the most popular and challenging series exams administered by FINRA. Awesome. Now, as always, a little bit of housekeeping here. This study session is being recorded, and you will receive the recording via email after the session. Again, the class will also be available on our website and all social media. Again, all attendees are in listen-only mode, but feel free to ask questions using the GoToWebinar control panel on your right-hand side. And I will also answer your questions during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Great, so for today's agenda, we will go over the structure of the Series 79 exam, some career opportunities once you pass the exam, key topics including collection, analysis, evaluation of data, underwriting of new financing transactions and different types of offerings and registrations of securities. And then finally, the last topic is mergers and acquisitions, tender offers, and financial restructuring transactions. Then we will go over, as I mentioned, some test-taking strategies and tips. And then, as always, we're going to have a quick Q&A session at the end of the class. But obviously, I encourage you guys to submit your questions during the presentation as we move along with the presentation. Great. So let's jump right into the Series 79 exam structure. So if you want to work in investment banking, you really have to take and pass the Series 79. There's no way around it. The exam tests candidates on advising on or facilitating debt and equity securities offerings through, for example, private placements or public offerings, and obviously M&A. Candidates must be associated with and sponsored by a FINRA member firm. This is different from the SIE exam, as we covered during our last couple of classes. The SIE does not require to be sponsored by a FINRA member, while all the series licenses, they actually do require to be sponsored by a FINRA member, a broker-dealer. Just to emphasize here that candidates must pass the SIE exam and the Series 79 exam to be fully licensed as an investment banker or an investment banking representative, as we call it. The passing score for the exam is 73%. As always, this score will be scaled to equalize the specific mix of questions that each candidate will face during the exam. The exam is I would say much longer compared to the SIE exam, and for good reason, because the nature of the exam and the difficulty of the exam is definitely higher compared to the SIE. So 2 hours and 30 minutes to complete the exam. The number of questions is the same actually as the SIE exam, so 75 plus 10 ungraded questions that you will not know which ones are actually ungraded, but it's way for FINRA to test new questions to see how people perform with those questions. So the total is 85 questions. In terms of what I recommend for your study time, I would say at least 100 hours, and that's over a period of 3 to 5 weeks. The questions that you should complete, I would say about 1,000 or even more if you have a little bit more time. And then I suggest you take one assessment exam, which is 75 questions, 3 diagnostic exams, 85 questions each, and then 20 short online practice exams, 30 questions each. So that would be about 600 questions that you should take. And then the final one, benchmark exam. And this wording in terms of the type of exams that you could take with your exam prep provider is fairly common across exam prep providers. So you will see assessment exams, diagnostic exams, and also the benchmark exam, which is the final, say, practice exam that you take right before you take the actual exam. And that's, again, very helpful to understand your level of knowledge and understanding of the topics for the series exam. Awesome. Now, in terms of career opportunities, once you pass both the SIE exam and Series 79 and you're officially registered as an investment banker, you will be able to advise on and facilitate the following. Debt and equity offering that includes private placement or IPOs, for example, or follow-on offerings, again, public offerings, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, tender offers, financial restructuring, asset sales, divestitures or other corporate reorganizations, and then business combination transactions, which can be in a sense similar to M&A. And then a day in the life of an investment banker. I wanted to discuss this because I get a lot of questions all the time. So what do you actually do during the day, and what are your duties, and what kind of work does an actual investment banker perform, right? So here you see raising funds. So we help, as an investment banker, you should be able to help companies raising equity or debt. That's pretty straightforward in terms of raising funds. And then building financial models, that's obviously a big part of the investment banker's life. I would say at the very, once you start your career as an investment banker, so call it investment banking analyst, you will build definitely a lot of financial models. And that includes obviously analyze and support M&A transactions and FP&A or financial planning and analysis type of work. Again, you should be well versed into with Excel and know your formulas, and obviously financial statements. And then next, perform valuation analysis. That goes along with the building of financial models, right? So you will be using different methods, including the transaction comps, the market approach when you use the comparable companies to your target valuation, discounted cash flow analysis or DCF, and then we have the leverage buyout method. For the LBO or leverage buyout method, I would like to emphasize that this is mostly for private equity type of work. This is mostly from the investor standpoint, but obviously investment bankers that could also represent private equity funds, or it's helpful to understand an LBO model so that you fully you have a good picture of what an investor is actually looking for when they are analyzing an investment opportunity. So that's very helpful to understand. And then obviously at the very beginning of your career as an investment banker, you will do a lot of market research, again, conduct company and industry research to prospect for clients and bring in new business. So you will build pitch books, as we call it, or discussion material to show the prospective clients your capabilities as a firm, as a broker-dealer, how you can help that client raise capital, do any sort of M&A transaction, buy side, etc. manage transactions. So you will participate in and manage all stages of the transaction, from the opening pitch to the closing investment contract. Great. In terms of the investment banker salary, you can see here we have the median annual salary, top 10% annual salary, and then bottom 10% annual salary. This is from 2018. Definitely the salaries have gone up. I would say that now the median looks more like at least 75,000. And then we have the top 10 a little bit more than 200,000, and then the bottom 34,000 a year. So again, the investment banking salary is very rewarding, I would say, but again, the investment bankers' day-to-day life can be a little bit challenging. You know, long hours, a lot of financial models and Excels that you have to work on. Great. Now, moving on the exam topics, the biggest topic area of the Series 79 is collection, analysis, and evaluation of data. That's 49% of the total exam, which represents 37 questions, right? So the type of questions in the specific section of the Series 79 include adjusting for non-recurring items, calculating a company's equity value and enterprise value, and then pricing an IPO, for example, using a price to earnings multiple. And as you can see here, you can use the comparable companies analysis, present transactions, and as I discussed before, the DCF. So again, this is the biggest topic area of the exam, so you should really spend quite a bit of time studying the different statements, you know, the income statement, balance sheet, understanding how they work, and obviously different multiples and valuations methodologies. Great. So next we have underwriting, new financing transactions, type of offerings, and registration of securities, right? So this section would focus on capital market type of activities and represents the 27% of the total exam, which is 20 questions. Right. So these topics will test the candidate on the SEC registration process, exemption from SEC registration, which is heavily tested actually, the role of underwriters, and SEC filings, including 10K, 10Q, etc. Great. The third and final topic area is mergers and acquisitions, tender offers, and financial restructuring transactions. So this again will focus on the M&A process, M&A documents, and anything really about mergers and acquisitions. This part of the exam will represent 24% of the entire exam, which translates into 18 questions. All right, so examples of topics that you will see in this specific section of the exam include questions, as I mentioned, regarding the M&A process or what documents are used in the M&A process, the rules relating to tender offers. That's also a very highly tested topic in the exam. And then, for example, when you talk about bankruptcy process, you will see questions related to Chapter 7 versus Chapter 11 bankruptcies. Great. Now, for my favorite part of the presentation, which I'm sure it's yours as well, test-taking strategies, right? So how do you actually tackle questions? So which topics should you focus on? And first thing, I always like to tell my students that you should guess quickly. So don't spend more than a minute per question on average. And that's very important because during the exam, you will see that obviously it's a long exam, so you will get tired and your mind may play some tricks on you, because in reality, you know that you spend the right amount of time studying for this exam. You know your topics, you know about M&A, you know, investment banking, IPOs, etc. So really, you should, you know, don't waste too much time on questions, because you will, typically the first guess is the right answer. Obviously not always, but that kind of mentality really helped me, for example, during my Series 79 exam, and should really help everyone. And then again, remember, exam clock keeps ticking if you take a break. So if you decide to take a break, the exam time will continue. Secondly, when you see a long question, before you read the entire question, I suggest that you take a look at the final lines or the final short question to understand what the questions is actually asking you, what you've been actually asked. And then you can go back to the beginning of the question and read the question carefully. And this is because when you see lengthy questions, they most likely include a lot of information that you do not need. So this is a tip for you to stay focused on what is actually been asked, right? And you will see a lot of this lengthy questions in the Series 79. So always take a look at the last few lines to understand what you've been asked. And then third, although candidates tend to focus on the math and valuation content, this only accounts for 10 to 15% of the exam. Yes, a lot of candidates, a lot of students, they're preparing for the Series 79, they focus even too much on the math and valuation content. And yes, obviously, those can be pretty tough questions, so you should spend some time obviously studying for that. But regulations and processes are much more important in terms of questions. So you will see more questions on regulations and different M&A process or an IPO process. And again, those questions tend to be trickier as well. And then next, you should focus on non-traditional investment banking questions, such as the ones involving bond math. Obviously, this is an investment banking exam, so I'm not saying that you should not focus on investment banking questions. But as you take the Series 79, most likely you're going to be exposed to the investment banking process, so you already should be more familiar on those type of questions. So that's why you should spend a little bit more time in non-traditional IB questions, as I mentioned, including bond math. So that's which are very common, by the way, in the exam. And then lastly, you should take at least 5 short online practice exams. So as I mentioned, the short online practice exam, I suggest you include 30 questions each. And those practice exams should focus on fairness opinions and exemptions from registration. This is a heavily tested topic, both of them actually, heavily tested topics in the Series 79. A lot of fairness opinions questions, so I really suggest that you spend a lot of time on that, and the exemptions from registration. Great. Awesome. So great. Now I want to turn things over to you as always and take some time for questions. Just as a reminder, be sure to type your question in the question box on your right-hand side in the control panel. So let's see. Great. It looks like we have quite a few questions here. So Jonah asked, should I prepare for the exam while working full-time? Well, yes. So 99% of the time, I would say that candidates that are taking the Steer 79 are fully employed with a broker-dealer. So you will have to kind of juggle your study time with your obviously work duties. But you're typically given 3 months to take the Series 79 or any series exam. What happens is that once you're employed by a broker-dealer, the broker-dealer will open a form, which is called U4, Form U4, which will open a window for you to take the exam, which will last 3 months. So that's why that's a very common kind of timeline that you see across investment banks. That is the reason why you have typically 3 months to take and pass your exam. A lot of broker-dealers will give you only one chance to pass the exam. So I highly suggest that you start preparing. If you're planning on working as an investment banker, I highly suggest that you start your research and your studying before getting employed, so you get ahead essentially. Great. Let's see. All right, so Alex asked, can I take the Series 79 online during COVID? Unfortunately, no, you cannot take the 79. Right now, I believe the only exams available online are the SIE, the Series 6, 7, 63, 65, and 66. So yeah, it might change, but right now that's what's going on with the online testing during COVID. Okay. Michael asks, so if I fail, can I take the Series 79 again? So yes, the short answer is yes. So if you fail the exam, FINRA will have you wait for 30 days before you can take your next exam, before you can reschedule the exam. If you fail the test 3 times, then the waiting period will be 6 months. But I highly suggest that if you were very close the first time and passing, for example, the passing score is 73%, right? So if you had 72% or even 71 or even 70, I suggest that you retake it immediately once a 30-day wait period ends, because the exam is fresh in your mind, and you can easily just perhaps take a class or prepare some more flashcards, do more practice exams, and it's very likely that you will see some questions that you saw in your previous in the first time that you took the exam. So I only suggest that you spend, a little bit more time, focusing. Don't leave anything to chance, and take the exam right away once that 30-day wait period ends, as I mentioned. Let's see. Mike is asking how many practice tests to pass to be sure that I'm prepared. Yeah, that's a great question. So I suggest you take about 1,000 questions. While you study for the Series 79, you will you should use some exam prep provider type of exam bank, and they will typically give you some sort of guideline in terms of how many practice questions you should take. But again, on average, across all exam prep providers, they all suggest about 1,000 questions. And again, that includes longer practice exams, like the full 85 questions. Maybe shorter exams, you could take more of those, like 50 or 30 questions. Those are very, and those perhaps 30 questions, you can focus on a specific topic that you're not too familiar with, or that you're not, again, you haven't been studying that topic for that much, right? See if we have a little more time. Yes. Derek is asking, do they say what answers where right and wrong. Yes, so there are different ways that you could take the practice exams. You could actually select that you will get the answer right away, or you can also select the other way, which is you will only get the answer at the end once you complete the questions. There's a follow-up question on the actual test. Yes, so on the actual test, you will not be penalized for wrong answers. So you can actually go back to the and you can go back to the questions that you perhaps flag for review. So you will not get the answer right away. You will only get actually even at the end, you will not get the answers to the exam. You will only get a score. Yeah, the score, you only get a score if you fail, by the way, because if you pass, you will just see pass. You're not gonna know your score, by the way. Great, awesome. Another question we have, Rebecca asked, if I stop working for the company, will my Series 79 license be active? Wow, that's a very good question. So if your employer files the Form U5 once you terminate your work agreement with the broker-dealer, you will have 2 years to get re-registered with another broker-dealer, right? So that's kind of the time frame that you have before you have to retake the exam, unfortunately. So if you wait more than 2 years to get re-registered with another broker-dealer, with another firm, you unfortunately, yes, you will have to retake the exam. But if you are able to always be attached to a broker-dealer, then your Series 79 will remain active forever, right? And as I mentioned before, once you get re-registered with the firm, that member firm will issue a Form U4 for you to be re-registered with that specific member firm. Great. Let's see. Okay. Hannah is asking, let me see, would you compare the Series 79 to the CFA? Well, that's a great question because a lot of people actually do. And personally, I think that the Series 79 is one of the most challenging series exams administered by FINRA, as I mentioned before. You know, again, with the Series 7, but a lot of people compare the Series 79 in particular to the CFA because, again, it focuses a lot on the understanding of financial statements, different financial metrics, the M&A process, some regulatory aspects of the financial industry, obviously. So you should definitely not take the Series 79 lightly. It can be very challenging also because even if you use the exam prep providers, the language that you will see in the questions on the actual exam day, the wording will be kind of different compared to what you've seen during your prep time. Great. Let's see. All right, so we have Chris is asking, let me open it. Once I pass the Series 79, will I be automatically an investment banker? Well, yes, as I mentioned before, you have to pass the SIE exam and the Series 79 exam to be fully registered as an investment banking rep and obviously employed by the firm, by the broker-dealer. And then once you pass both exams, then yes, you will be officially an investment banker. All right, so that was the last question for the day. and concludes our study group session. Great questions, you guys. Appreciate it. And as always, this session will be available shortly. And if you would like to receive more information, please email us at info@aif.com. And as always, you could take a look at our finance skills page where you can find webinars, terms of the day, and some more useful resources on the securities licensing. Great. Thanks again for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.